And the House voted to ban Russian oil imports yesterday with overwhelming support, 414 to 17. President Biden had just announced a ban one day prior. 2 Democrats and 15 Republicans voted against the bill.
There's no way I could vote to exchange getting oil from Putin for getting oil from some other tyrant who wants to destroy America.
Congressman Louis Gohmert says he doesn't agree with Biden's plan to buy oil from Venezuela instead of Russia. And Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene says cost will increase and that Democrats have no plan to reduce gas prices after banning Russian oil. Inflation has just hit another 40-year high, and President Biden has said to the American people that they should expect the cost of gasoline to continue to rise. Here to assess if there's a way out of all of this, we have Jason Isaac from the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Jason Isaac, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
It's great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Jason, there's been much talk about the fact that there are thousands of permits that are already approved by the government for drilling, and that the Keystone Pipeline would not reduce gas prices because we're already getting that fuel from other places. If you could please offer us your perspective on that.
Absolutely. Just permits and leases does not equal production, and the current administration has taken a whole of government approach against the fossil fuel industry. They're colluding with large financial institutions and banks to deny capital that's necessary to increase production. And so it's interesting to see that the administration is talking about all these leases and permits that are available. There are other regulatory hurdles that have to be gone through, and those are being held up within the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the EPA because this administration is anti-fossil fuels. They are anti-American energy, and this whole of government approach continues regardless of what the current administration is telling the American people.
Now, Jason, politics aside, is there a practical, reachable strategy to get prices of fuel down for your average American?
Oh, absolutely. The signals that can be sent to the average American from the administration that they are going to embrace American energy and energy independence would actually signal to the markets to start investing again in American energy production and refining. Our refining capacity has remained flat for nearly the last decade because, again, you've got to get regulatory permits approved from the bureaucracy, this fourth branch of government that is crushing the American people. When the EPA administrator says they're standing on the accelerator to zero emissions, they're doing that with one foot while the other foot is on the throat of the American people and crushing them with high energy cost. So signals to the market will actually impact prices at the pump more than anything else immediately.
Now, costs are one thing, national security is another. How is energy independence linked to national security?
Oh, this is something that's just transitioned here within the last 18 months. We used to be energy independent. We were actually exporting more energy than we were consuming. And you look at what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, they are dependent. The European Union is dependent on Russian energy. And this is something that the prior administration was trying to do to help Europe, help them become dependent on natural gas from the United States that's produced more responsibly than anywhere else in the world, arguably. But instead, Europe chose to partner with Russia and is now funding this unjust war in Ukraine, which is just an atrocity that's unfolding before our very eyes, and we're funding it. It's just unbelievable.
Now, why are we seeing the Biden administration so set against more drilling? You touched upon it. I mean, how much more, if it is about the environment, how much more harmful to the environment would more drilling really be in the United States?
No, it wouldn't be harmful to the environment at all. We produce more energy responsibly like here anywhere than anywhere else in the world. And we've actually had record improvements in our air quality as we've produced more energy over the last 5 decades. We've reduced harmful pollution from our air 78% in the last 50 years. We're world leaders in air quality. We're number one when it comes to access to clean and safe drinking water. There are 1 billion people on the face of the earth that have no access to electricity, something that they could only imagine. And if we really want to end poverty around the world, we do it with American energy. So there's no additional harm to the environment. What does harm the environment and destroys habitat is this green bling and renewable dreams of wind and solar that the current administration, this Chinese energy, is pushing on America with subsidies that are threatening our energy reliability and increasing cost. We've seen firsthand here in Texas what having too much unreliable, renewable energy on a grid does, it causes blackouts, it increases costs and decreases reliability. That hurts the least among us more than anyone else.
Jason Isaac, thank you.
Great to be on.
And the Justice Department has assembled a task force to freeze the assets of Russian oligarchs it says are financing the war in Ukraine.
The purpose of the task force, of course, is to freeze and seize the assets of sanctioned Russian oligarchs and Russian entities that are facilitating this unjust war.
The task force will include federal agents and prosecutors. They will pursue wealthy Russians or anyone who aids Russia's invasion of Ukraine or uses cryptocurrency to help Russia evade sanctions. A week ago, France took a similar initiative and seized the yacht of Putin's friend and close advisor, Russian oligarch Igor Sechin. Sechin is also CEO of a Russian state-run oil company. As the Russia-Ukraine war enters its 15th day, a U.S. spy chief says that Russian forces are showing, quote, reckless disregard for Ukrainian civilians. American agencies are investigating their actions for accountability.
The Russian military has begun to loosen its rules of engagement to achieve their military objectives. If they pursue the maximalist approach, we judge it will be especially challenging for the Russians to hold and control Ukrainian territory and install a sustainable pro-Russian regime to Kyiv.
U.S. National Intelligence Director Avril Haines says that American intelligence agencies are documenting Russia's actions.
The IC is engaged across the interagency to document and hold Russia and Russian actors accountable for their actions.
Haines's comments were made today at the Senate Intelligence Committee's annual hearing, which was about worldwide threats to U.S. security. And in spite of the war between Russia and the Ukraine, she says China remains the #1 threat to America, followed by Russia, Iran, and North Korea.
And the assessment starts with threats from key state actors, beginning with the People's Republic of China, which remains an unparalleled priority for the intelligence community.
And the White House Thursday criticized Russia for pushing, quote, false claims about the U.S. running biological weapon labs in Ukraine. Press Secretary Jen Psaki tweeted yesterday, we've also seen Chinese officials echo these conspiracy theories. In an interview with Full Send podcast, former President Trump said that Vladimir Putin would never have invaded Ukraine during his administration. He believes the Russian leader lost respect for the U.S. when he saw the botched Afghanistan withdrawal.
Zero chance he would have done it. Good. He saw the weakness. He saw Afghanistan, that the way, the incompetence of the withdrawal, the way they did it was so bad. Who advised them to take soldiers out first and leave people behind?
Trump added that President Biden's policies are forcing a dangerous alliance between Russia, China, and Iran.
This administration and Obama, they have forced Russia and China together. They are now wonderful partners, and add one third country to it, Iran. They have forced them together with their stupid foreign policy.
The interview between Nelk Boy's Canadian YouTubers and President Trump was viewed by over 4.5 million people on the day it was released. The 54-minute interview can be found on the Full Send podcast. The Chinese Communist Party is the driving force or the central hub for communism throughout the world. However, over time, the specter of communism has fragmented and taken on a life of its own in different forms throughout the world. We sat down with Trevor Loudon, researcher and host of Counterpunch on NTD, to take a closer look at how some of these communist elements have gained a foothold in American society.
Trevor Loudon, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Well, look, it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
Now, Trevor, I just want to ask you about the term Marxism, the concept of it, and just how widespread you think it is throughout our country.
Look, I think it's extremely widespread, and we have to understand it in its present form. You know, the traditional Marxism was all about the working class, you know, the stages of history, the proletariat that would rise up and eventually take the wealth of the capitalists and establish a communist communal society. And it was all class-based. Marx was all about class. But in the modern era, Marxism has morphed into any oppressed group. The LGBTQ movement is a Marxist movement, empowering the LGBT people against their oppressors. It's now very heavily involved in race. You know, Black Lives Matter is a Marxist movement. You know, the oppressed peoples of color rising up against the white capitalist patriarchy. The feminist movement is Marxist. The environmental movement is Marxist. So Marxism is really the main political economic paradigm that we live in today, but most people don't recognize it because they're still thinking about the old class struggle, you know, of the 1840s and the early part of the 20th century. So Marxism is endemic in our society. It's everywhere.
Such an interesting point you make, and I want to ask you about the terminology, because like you said, they seem that the terms and names that they use seem to be very deceptive. Black Lives Matter, the 1619 Project, you said the LGBTQ movement, they use terms like equity, inclusivity, the list seems to go on, and tell us about that.
Well, that's right. You know, Marxism is a hard sell. A revolution is a hard thing to sell to people. You got to sell it as something different than what it actually is. You know, Lenin, when he took over Russia, didn't talk about we're going to collectivize everything, we're going to put people in gulags, we're going to create a totalitarian state. It was land, peace, and bread for the people. The people would be given land, the people would have peace, we would have enough to eat. You know, today it's sold as equity. What does equity mean? That's not the same as equality. You know, in America, we all have equality under the law, or we should have. Equity means we have the same outcome. So no matter where you start, you end up with the same amount of money. You end up with the same amount of power. That's communism. That's what it is. Equity means communism. But it sounds like equality, so it's nice, you know. We talk about diversity, we talk about inclusion. Well, inclusion basically means that every radical point of view is allowed into the public discourse and becomes dominant. You know, so Marxism has always relied on deception and using words to deceive people. Like the communist definition of democracy. We see democracy as something positive. It means, you know, we have representative government, the rule of law, parliament or a senate or a congress. Communism, to a communist democracy means this. Democracy is the will of the people. Who are the representatives of the people? The communists are the representatives of the people. So democracy means rule by the communists.
Now, do you find that it's a bit of a challenge to present what Marxism is, because it's so easy, because it is so deceptive and hidden, for the other side to say that, oh, you know, it doesn't exist, you're a conspiracy theorist?
Yeah, it is difficult because it takes a little bit of study and research to identify this. You can show people this. See, a lot of people know it. They look at Black Lives Matter and they're very disturbed by it. They look at the LGBTQ movement and they're disturbed by it. They look at what's happening in the Ukraine and Russia, they're disturbed by it. They look what communist China's doing, they're disturbed by it. They look at election irregularities, they're disturbed by it. What they don't do is connect the dots that these are all part of an integrated whole. All of these programs are designed to weaken America, weaken the West, weaken our traditions, weaken our families, weaken our governments, weaken our religions, so the whole lot can be overturned and replaced with a communist socialist regime. So you just got to, what I point to people is I said, look, you look at the environmental movement. That's not about the environment. That's about overturning industry, destroying industry. Wealth, destroying wealth. You look at the LGBTQ movement, that's not about strengthening the LGBTQ people, that's about destroying the traditional family.
Trevor Loudon, thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you, sir.
Today is the fourth day that the People's Convoy circled the Capitol Beltway to call for an end to COVID-related restrictions. And joining them was Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Cruz rode shotgun in the lead car, waving at the truckers. He posted photos and a video on Twitter saying, "Petty government tyrants should not force people to make private health care decisions." At least 1,000 vehicles departed a rally in Maryland and looped the Capitol Beltway on Sunday. Several lawmakers, including Cruz, met with the leaders of the trucker convoys on Capitol Hill earlier this week.